Hey everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldai, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. I'm also the publisher at Autonomy Global, so if you haven't checked that out, do so. We are in a month that we've dedicated to this theme of data-driven ops, sponsored by Aerospace Link. And this week we have the absolute privilege and pleasure of having on our show Tom Swoyer from GrandSky and Chris Hewlett, who's managing the Ultra project for Tom and his team from North Dakota to talk about everything that's going on there and all the updates. We've had Tom on the show before. He's a great friend to the show. And by the way, this year, GrandSky is sponsoring this Enabling Aerospace Innovations series. So this is part one of that 4-part series. Stay tuned for more later in the year. But in the meantime, we've got them now. So let's go ahead and get those intros going. For those that don't know you, Tom, can you please give a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. Thank you very much, and thanks for having us today. My name is Tom Swoyer. I'm the founder and developer of GrandSky in Grand Forks, North Dakota. We are a UAS-focused flight operations center. We've been operating for 10 years now. Actually, yesterday was the 10th anniversary of the signing of our agreements that put us in motion. So we're excited about that. 10 years of operational experience, 8 of which included beyond line of sight capability. So we are excited about what we're doing.
I love that. We're going to dive deeper into why you're doing it, how you all started here in a second. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get Chris to introduce himself.
Yeah, Don, thanks so much. So happy to be here with both of you. My name is Chris Hewlett, Commander, United States Navy, retired. Spent most of my career for 21 years flying helicopters for the U.S. Navy. Along the way, kind of messed up and screened for command. And in that process was given the gift that keeps on giving, which is integration of Fire Scout into the system for the U.S. Navy. And I integrated that along with MH-60 Romeo Strike Hawk helicopters and Littoral Combat Ship, which gave me all this gray hair. When I retired, went to work in consulting, and along the road, when I was working for one of the companies, met Tom, got involved in the GrandSky team, and got involved in helping him hatch this beautiful process that we now have, which is a working relationship with Grand Forks County and the Office of Undersecretary of Defense, which is known as Project Ultra.
We are going to talk, of course, more about Project Ultra here shortly. But I just also want to remind everybody out there, we are live. So you've got these 2 incredible experts on the show today. Please jump in the chat, say hello, tell us where you're from, ask your questions, give us positive encouragement. We love all of those things. That's a great segue, Chris, to talk. You go back to Tom and talk about this origin story, because it's been 10 years now, as you said, doing all kinds of things, enabling beyond visual line of sight or BVLOS ops up there in North Dakota. So tell us more. How did this all start?
You know, Don, the whole concept of GrandSky actually started in 2011. And oh, that's an awesome picture there with the fire.
I love this picture. It's so beautiful.
Okay, so for the sake of authenticity, those were airbrushed in later. They actually did fly at GrandSky, but not that picture right there. So, because I think it's really important that I bring that up, because I think it's important that we authentically talk about what is really happening, and we kind of avoid the hype bomb that tends to pervade our industry. But GrandSky started as a concept in 2011. Where Grand Forks County wanted to understand more what they could do to support the Air Force Base where we're located, and understand more about what this RQ-4 Global Hawk mission is. The community had just lost their KC-135 tankers. There was a lot of 10,000 people left the base, and these Global Hawks showed up, but there's no people in them. That means there's no people involved. And I think we all know that uncrewed is anything but uncrewed. It's just where the people are located. And so in 2015, we signed our leases with the county and the Air Force to take control of the land. And then in 2016, we signed a joint use agreement that along with it took us 2 years to organize it. But by 2018, the Air Force was able to give us their radar feed, something the FAA has been instructed to do under the FAA reauthorization. We've been doing it since 2018 with a DoD radar. And so the origin story was around, how do we set up a location, recognizing the Department of Defense needs places where they can fly uncrewed aircraft of all sizes, but particularly large uncrewed aircraft. How do we set something up that we can support Department of Defense in that way? And when we kind of started reaching out to the market, Northrop Grumman gravitated to us right away, and General Atomics was close behind.
Quite amazing, Tom. And, look, having been in the United States Air Force as a JAG, I fully appreciate the monumental feat it would have been to get this enhanced use lease that is so unique on Grand Forks Air Force Base. That allows you to share their flight line, ultimately to share that radar data. So I just want everybody out there to kind of appreciate how significant it is to have GrandSky co-located there with the Air Force Base. It's a very, very unique situation. And by the way, the chat is blowing up, guys. We got Mark Nung from the Nevada test site. Congratulations on your 10-year anniversary. Greg Larson, good morning from AGS. And we've got crew clips out there who I think might be our producer Mike, but I'm not sure. Saying hi from San Diego. Mike's out there in California. We've got Goyo at the helm today. Really great folks on the show. So thanks everybody. Keep them coming. We love all of that. So, Tom, you mentioned kind of these 10,000 people, on the base, kind of what are we doing? How does GrandSky ultimately contribute to workforce development in the military, but also in that local area, right, of Grand Forks, North Dakota and beyond?
Well, that's a wonderful question. Our primary mission, as chartered from Grand Forks County in our public-private partnership with them in the Air Force, that's a whole mouthful, but it just kind of bears fruit. Yeah, we're P4 now, so
that's true.
Public-private, yeah.
Yeah.
So our entire mission is around economic development and job creation. It's also to support the broader UAS ecosystem, particularly the North Dakota UAS ecosystem, and to do no harm, to support and enhance the mission of Grand Forks Air Force Base. So that three-pronged approach is what we are working on. So we are creating the amenities, creating the environment that companies like Northrop Grumman and General Atomics can come and hire people in. So just as an example, there are 269 people that come to GrandSky every day for work. We just got all this economic impact information updated this past December. So 269 direct people call GrandSky their work home. Our average salary at GrandSky is $117,000, and we pay $2.6 million a year in state and local taxes. So in terms of economic development, those are our three primary metrics. We work with the Air Force quite closely, and so we provide an opportunity. One of the things about RQ4s is they kind of leave the area and don't come back for a few days. And so when we, our ability to continually to fly flights from the runway, we fly MQ-9s, we fly a bunch of smaller UAS. This summer through Project Ultra, we're going to fly a bunch of Class 3 UAS. It keeps the tower operators fresh. It keeps them current. Keeps the airspace moving, and they are a great partner of ours, integration. And I hope we get a chance to talk about that, because without that partnership, this would be nearly impossible.
Yeah, we are absolutely going to be talking about airspace integration, because this is Data-Driven Ops Month. But I want to say, you mentioned the term ecosystem, and I want everybody to know, if you missed it, back in November, Tom and his team sponsored the month of November. It was Ecosystem Month. And so go back and check that show. We'll drop that link for you. We've got that in our script, so we'll go ahead and drop that as well. But great stuff. I mean, you guys are doing so much. And, you didn't mention, of course, University of North Dakota and that whole piece of it. Of course, you've got very active legislators and government officials in North Dakota that are all contributing to this wonderful ecosystem you have out there. And I want to talk about flight testing a little bit. I know those data-driven ops fuel, if you will, the flight testing you have at GrandSky. How do you guys ensure reliable flight testing?
Yeah, I'll take that question.
So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, sorry. Tom and I will always try and interrupt each other.
No worries.
Sorry about that. So yeah, the operational test and evaluation, that's the criticality about this, right? So that's what differentiates us from a lot of the other test facilities in the country. and that ecosystem and that uniqueness about GrandSky. And I think the operational test and evaluation side of the house is looking for a higher maturation level with the technical interchange of what we do and what the country is looking for, specifically the Department of Defense. So when you think about what we're trying to do, it's bringing high technical readiness level systems and components in and inculcating them into the system that's at GrandSky and providing that test and evaluation, which we'll get into that conversation about what that airspace integration looks like and how that is a data-driven process where we start with simulation and then we move into flight operations and then expand those flight operations into more critical flight operations that are more complex. So it all starts through a process that is OT&E.
Well, and I know you've got a boatload of sensors out there. We'll talk about that in a second. But what I also think is very unique about your location, of course, is the weather. And we can't talk about North Dakota. Yeah, I mean, we used to say in the Air Force, why not, my not, reason's the reason. So, but it's critically important in icing conditions and things like this that these vehicles are able to perform their missions. And I know that is that's something maybe you could simulate that in some wind tunnel or some chamber, but to have those conditions routinely, especially during the winter months, I think makes a big difference. Tom, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that briefly before we get into the kind of the UTM, if you will, the UAS traffic management system and all the sensors that you put together out there.
The weather is critical. We have 4 seasons in North Dakota. We just happen to experience more winter and colder winter than most of the United States. Our flight threshold is -35 with the wind chill.
Wow.
Most of the time we don't fly into icing conditions anyway. But one of the things that we invested in the Meteomatics Meteo drone to actually send a drone sensor up to 9,000 feet to actually take real live measurements. And then, of course, we have had a long partnership now for a number of years with Don Birchoff and True Weather Solutions, helping us build out an entire weather model that we use and can forecast out. They are really good. They are really accurate meteorologists that can help us. So the combination of live data along with really robust weather models is how we manage some of that and ensure safety in our flight testing.
Well, that's a great segue to talk about the other sensors you have out there. So you've got a lot of things you've kind of layered across the flight line and elsewhere so that you're able to capture relevant data. You talked about fusing in that military radar data. Tell us a little bit about what that's looking like and then how you're basically integrating that for airspace awareness.
Sure. So right now, GrandSky operates a beyond line of sight system, which is multiple sensors coupled with some off-the-shelf technology. Our system integrator, our system engineer, and system provider is Thales USA. We use their TopSky product. In fact, our beyond line of sight system is kind of the skinny down version of what Vantis is going to be for the entire state of North Dakota that the Northern Plains Test Site is putting together. Okay. So we bring in at GrandSky, our system is unique just to GrandSky. It's only available on GrandSky. So to see it, because it's a military radar and it's a live feed, you can only see it if you're actually on GrandSky and working with us in that regard. But that fuses the primary and secondary radar feeds from the Department of Defense radar. We add in an ADS-B extend. All of that gets fused into the Thales TopSky system to create one uniform situational awareness display that an electronic observer can then be in contact with the pilot and call out where traffic may be for their particular flight operation. The radar extends out to 60 miles, a 60-mile radius from our location. So that equates to, if you just do the basic pi times the radius squared, that's 11,000 square miles of coverage that we can safely put into that system and then show all of it simultaneously. So that's our primary system, is we use that primary radar. Our job is to find the non-cooperative aircraft. How do we find the crop duster? How do we find the aircraft that's out there? Somebody's just tooling around in their private plane, and we can provide a safe environment for the UAS op.
Yeah, well, look, Tom, and I know Chris will agree with this. Nothing right now is a hotter topic or more important than airspace awareness. And we've had some recent, the recent DC tragedy, as an example. Now that was a military helicopter and crewed commercial aircraft. But I think it highlighted some gaps, even in a system that we've come to get very comfortable with and rely on every single day when we step on a commercial plane, right? So you mentioned that there are small UAS as well flying around your flight line, in addition to these Group 3 or bigger ones. I guess my question is, how do you get that awareness? So the radar's picking that up, because obviously we're not using ADS-B out on those small drones. How is that working? Because I know, when you're talking about the big aircraft and them not even seeing each other in the DC context, and then you add these new entrants, these smaller aircraft, how are you ensuring that that your folks are able to see all of it?
So we fly our class 1, group 1, whichever way we want to describe it, UAS, the smalls. We use them all visual line of sight. We are doing that mostly right around the park itself. We use it for perimeter security check, infrastructure checks, infrastructure inspection, marketing, a lot of marketing flights. We do that around then, and we have, so that's all, traditional Part 107 flight operations with a visual observer. The larger aircraft that can be seen by the radar, we use our beyond line of sight system. But you have to remember that the beyond line of sight system, the beyond line of sight process, and this is where the data driven comes in. Yep. The data we're collecting is we're trying to see manned aircraft. It's the job of the operator to avoid manned aircraft, not necessarily, not definitely. We don't provide air traffic control. We don't provide the separation. We have a process whereby a pilot can talk to a controller, and that controller may be the tower operator in the class Delta airspace up to 10,000 feet out several miles past the perimeter of the base. That controller may be guiding us, or talking to Minneapolis Center if we're in the national airspace, which has responsibility for that area, and that we give the information to the operator to be able to say, hey, I've got traffic to my right. What do you want me to do? Oh, we want you to climb. We want you to stay level. We'll talk to that traffic. Stay where you are, do that. And so those are the systems and procedures that have been put in place. We got our first waiver to fly beyond line of sight using this system back in 2018. Wow. So we've got a lot of years of practice of the system dying when there's an unescorted MQ-9 out in the pattern. What are the emergency procedures? How does this work? Where are your lost link hold locations? All of those things have to work. That's the procedure. That to me is part of data-driven ops. That's the data that we need, that we all know what we're going to do when something stops working the way it's supposed to work. So that's the data that we need to share. And the more we can build infrastructure and systems that tie an aircraft and an operator to a broader ecosystem for awareness, the more another pilot in a Cessna can say, oh, they're lost link right now. I'm going to stay away from that area. Yeah. We need to, that's what we're trying to build.
Well, that's amazing. And, you use the word system, Tom, and I know, when people think about UAS in particular, they're thinking, UAS traffic management, what's that going to look like, or UTM. You guys have coined a new term, if you will. First of all, I want you to tell everybody what it is. And then I want you to explain why you've changed kind of the lingo, if you will, like for what purpose?
Well, Chris can explain what it is, and I'll explain why we're changing the lingo.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so it's the Airspace System Integration Service, right? So ASIS is the core of Project Ultra. It's designed on the backbone of the federal USS system. So that's AFRL's Clue, what was developed through AFWorks and Agility Prime. and also NASA's Freddy system. So these are systems that operate off of 3 basic servers that have discovery and synchronization servers, they have an authentication server, and then basic flight information management system or flight management system associated with them. We built basically an identical copy of all of those systems at GrandSky to house the data that's coming in from all the sensors and all the supplemental data service providers, the weather systems. Doesn't matter if it's a UAS operator or anybody who wants to plug into the system. It aggregates all of that information and shares it with all the people who need it. And that is the core essence of our data-driven solutions process, because it allows us to provide the analytics in the simulated world first that allows us to build the safety risk management and safety cases that move us in the right process in concert with the Federal Aviation Administration to allow for the flights that we're going to do, for instance, later in the year with Project Ultra, where we're flying beyond visual line of sight with a Class 3 drone delivering 50 pounds of payload from Grand Forks Air Force Base to Cavalier Space Force Station, and then the return flight will happen afterwards. And that will be a groundbreaking moment in the continental United States.
It will, because having worked on an Air Force base, we couldn't even, at the time, I mean, I retired in 2018, but I was very much involved at the United States Air Force Academy in what was happening in terms of drones. And of course, across the whole Air Force and the DoD, because I wrote those policies, but we couldn't even do very basic things with drones on the base at the time. And you're talking about departing a base, international airspace to another base for delivery and then back. I mean, absolutely groundbreaking, hasn't been done before. Tom, you wanted to tell us why ACES? Why ACES?
Sure. And to your point, that we're leaving a Class Delta airspace, a military airspace, traveling through national airspace, going to a military airspace, dropping off a payload, putting a new payload on, and then coming back. We're also doing that while 17 B-1 bombers are doing work around the base, RQ-4s and MQ-9s. We're doing it without sterilizing airspace. We're doing it in the NAS. The University of North Dakota's Aerospace School doesn't have to change their procedures. We're doing it all within that overall environment. But one of the things, and I took my cue from Chris on this, we talk about UTM and UAS traffic management. But
Yes.
Why are we separating that conversation? It's traffic management, whether it's UAS or piloted aircraft. Why do we care? It's all traffic management. And so we said, well, let's stop using that term. But then we also said that, we're not doing this. We're doing this in specific locations. So Aerospace Innovation Services is what, ACES is about. And so whether your airspace that you're integrating is just at GrandSky, or it's Grand Forks County, North Dakota, or it's San Antonio, Texas, or it's the entire state of Texas. Heck, our friends from Nevada are listening to this. It could be the state of Nevada. It could be the northern half of Nevada. Pick your airspace that an organization wants to integrate. And then within that airspace, how can you set up a system that shares data with each other? So I don't want to be a winner in terms of, I don't want to pick Airspace Link or OneSky or any of the other fabulous systems that are out in the market right now, including our own Top Sky system from Thales. I don't want to be in the business of picking that winner necessarily. I just want that system to feed the same 12 pieces of data to a common core, and every other system feed those same 12 pieces of data so that we just all know what each other is doing. I don't think, I would argue the state of Nevada has a inherent benefit, an inherent requirement to understand what's happening in their airspace and enable that. It enables advanced air mobility. It enables a variety of things. But we don't want, the state of Nevada doesn't need to be picking winners. So why can't all the systems participate if we all just share the same types of data? And that's what the ACES core is that Chris is talking about. We can integrate any size airspace that we want to integrate.
I love that. Is now a good time to roll the video, because I think we have,
sure.
Picture paints 1,000 words. We're going to go ahead and stop talking now, roll this video, and let you guys watch it, and then we'll continue the conversation. All right, very, very cool. You know what I love about what you're doing? It is plug and play. I love the fact you're not picking winners because I've been saying this for years. You know, the winners, if you will, in this industry, the people that will survive are the ones that can do things together. And we've seen the military, right, go to MOSA, modular open systems architecture. Why? Because they can no longer, nor can really even private industry, afford to pick one system that they're locked into for 5 or 10 years, you know, when everything else is moving forward and you've got the one thing that doesn't talk to other things or that doesn't talk to the things that you already have. So I think that's absolutely incredible. And I want to be sure that we, you know, kind of level set with everybody what Project Ultra even is, because, you know, ACES was kind of born from and with Project Ultra. So Chris, I'm going to go back to you. First of all, tell us what that's an acronym. Tell us what the acronym is, and then tell us what Ultra is all about.
Right. So Ultra stands for UAS, Logistics, Traffic, Response, and Autonomy. And the response portion is counter UAS. I'll get to that in a second. But at its core, Ultra was, when it was hatched, it's basically taken a 10-year journey. It's a collaboration effort that has been ongoing between the Office of Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisitions and Sustainment, NASA, and AFWorks, AFRL, and MITRE. So it's really a concept of operations that's designed around airspace integration and airspace awareness. The birth of ACES was really because at its infancy, the Department of Defense doesn't like the term advanced aerial mobility. They don't like the term UTM, like Tom and I have discussed before. So they wanted something different. So that's how we came up with ACES, and really speaks to the core of what we do, which is integration of services to the airspace. Now, Ultra itself started out really with the idea of getting these logistics flights going, right? To try and give some kind of benefit to the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and guardians who are protecting our country, especially here in the continental United States. So our first iterations of Ultra, Task Orders 1, was all about simulation and connectivity, making sure that the federal USSs could play in the world that is GrandSky, connecting to the ACES core, connecting to the ground-based sense and avoid system so that we could run a test bed of simulations and have the confidence that when we down selected to the drone that we were going to use for the eventual flights, we'd be able to see it and adjudicate it and create the right safety case for the Federal Aviation Administration, who is along with us and taking this journey to make it happen. Now we've kind of graduated. We've graduated, guilty by success, I would say. These logistics flights are becoming a more real solution, but our country has also gotten to a point where it needs probably a more granular response and a more finite response of airspace, and that's counter UAS. So originally, Task Orders 4 and 5 were going to be continuation of logistics, but that's kind of shifted in the mindset inside the Pentagon. And now we're more focused on counter UAS. So it's funny that you mentioned how are we working the process of integrating Class 1 drones into military installations. Not saying that they're not being used. I'm saying it's more of a radio communication now where somebody is using a drone on the other side of a base and they're made aware of it. There's some great work that's being done at MacDill Air Force Base where they've got integration in the tower and they're seeing clue. We're going to do the same thing, but with a different focus. The focus is going to be more aligned to counter UAS and airspace awareness so that unit commanders, base commanders are confident that what they're trying to mitigate, because I think that's mostly where counter UAS conversation goes to the mitigation side of the house. But at this point, I don't think we're comfortable saying that what we're mitigating in the airspace is not a protected species of bird or perhaps somebody's lunch in a drone that's going from one side of the base to the other side of the base.
Right.
So that's really the direction that we're starting to move.
No, that's great. And by the way, we just popped up the link for the worldwide premiere of Project Ultra. If you missed that video, check it out. We go really deep into what the project is all about with Northern Plains UAS test site, with Grand Forks County, as well as, of course, Tom. So really, really great stuff. Check that one out. So you said there was a Task Order 1, and I remember when we were doing the world premiere, there was kind of a call, if you will, for partners. So Tom, I'm going to go back to you and say, where are you in terms of, other task orders or along the milestones here? And are you guys still looking for partners?
Don, we're absolutely always looking for partners. In fact, we'll usually receive a flurry of interest emails and text messages and contacts through LinkedIn when your videos air and stuff. So that's always great to do that. And so, yes, we always want to know partners who are out there. We want to know what capabilities are out there. Usually, we can't fit them immediately into the task order at hand, but we can include it and try to include it in future task orders. So at the end of September, at the end of the last fiscal year, we wrapped up task order 1, which was to simulate that we are going to now do in task order 2 this year. So task order 1 was a generic nondescript drone flying from GrandSky to Cavalier Space Force Station and back, simulating that flight, simulating different scenarios that could happen during the flight. Then task order 2, we picked an aircraft, we were given some parameters to use. We picked the Skyways aircraft, mostly because they had an SBIR. The aircraft were available. The Navy already owned them, and we could get them on this task order quick. There are a lot of other great aircraft we want to try, but we are going to start with the Skyways aircraft, and then we started to do in task order 2 simulations around that aircraft, specifically that aircraft. How would it respond to certain scenarios? And now that those simulations are done, we're building out the flight plans, the waivers, airspace authorization, all the things. Our partners from the Northern Plains Test Site are leading that effort. We're building out our ACES core and maximizing the amount of data that can come in. So we're excited. In April, they'll come and fly. We'll start collecting a lot of data around that. And then in July, we're going to be actually doing the actual cargo flights.
Oh, that's amazing. So, Tom, I understand Skyways may have 2 different drones, the V2.6 and the V3.0. Are you going to be utilizing both of them? Like, have you run them both through sims? And which one or both do you think will be flying this summer then, doing the real world ops?
The answer is yes, but let's turn that over to our project director who lives and breathes this flight every day.
Chris, back over to you, buddy.
Yeah, so the short answer is, and I'll just be real clear about this because Tom and I have been very, very candid with everybody about we don't pick winners. So yes, the royal we is the Office of Undersecretary of Defense down selected to Skyways drone. We gave them our opinion about all the drones that were in the down select process, and the selection was made by Office of Undersecretary of Defense to use Skyways. And so we said yes, sir, and marched out. We then contacted Skyways and got some great help from them and their team to provide us with simulation in the loop data that we could now start simulating, so that we made sure that we had the V2.6 and the V3 accurately modeled for our safety cases, working with the Federal Aviation Administration. So yes, at the end of the day, what the intent is in the April demonstration flights that are being done on behalf of AFWorks, those flights will be occurring with Navy V2.6 drones that are coming up from Austin, Texas to GrandSky to conduct those flights. And they'll be doing a series of flights that are mostly airspace awareness flights and familiarization flights to get a working relationship with Grand Forks Air Force Base and GrandSky and get us a lot of the data that we need to finalize the safety cases. By the time we get to July, though, Skyways has aspirations, and so does the Navy and AFWorks, to bring in both the V2.6 and the V3.0. The 3.0 is a slightly larger airframe modeled after the 2.6 with a higher cargo capacity. And that is the drone ideally that we would like to be able to, at the end of the day, be delivering some higher weight packages, or it's mostly medical supplies, to include possibly some really great stuff that we'll start talking about to Cavalier Space Force Station.
Well, we're going to be keeping an eye on this. This is really exciting news, and you guys heard it here first. What the drones that were down selected for this project, when it's going to happen. I know every year Tom and Chris, North Dakota, puts on with BBI International the UAS Summit. in Grand Forks. I know it's going to be in early October. You guys are going to have so much to talk about. I can't wait to go back out there this year and cover that event and everything that's been happening. As you know, at that point of the year, we'll be looking back, and right now we're looking forward. So really cool way to bookend the year and see what's happened. There's going to be just so many things occurring with GrandSky and your partners this year. But that's a great question then, you know, as we look forward, you know, Project Ultra is huge. Project Ultra is a huge part of what you do at GrandSky, but it's not the only thing, right, Tom? I mean, so as you look forward to 2025 and, you know, ACES and all these data-driven ops and the OT&E, as Chris put it, that's happening, or the T&E that's happening, you know, on your campus. What else do you anticipate will happen this year in terms of data-driven ops?
Another fun question there. I think that we are going to be investing a lot more in the data coming off of UAS, the payload data. I think the image that's up there right now is a Test Resource Management Center Range Reaper, an MQ-9 with a really powerful sensor there that we've been flying, and that sensor will be used for testing hypersonic missile flights and hypersonic missile tests. The Test Resource Management Center announced that their Sky Range operational headquarters will be at GrandSky. The RQ-4 Global Hawks are getting repurposed right now. Our investment will be around the data, payload data and communications data, and how do we integrate all that. To that end, we have a partner company that is just so close to signing a lease with us and setting up. We're working on their 3 megawatts of power requirement for data operations to be able to process more quickly using AI tools, payload data, so we can strip that data down to the constituent component parts that an end user wants, instead of the gigabytes of imagery that might be collected. How do you strip it to what you really need to see and then just transport that back? So data transport, data processing, and then transport back to the end user is somewhere I see us investing a lot of energy and effort. Within that, we're trying to use all
that's a smart bet, right? Because it's all about the data. And to enable decision making with quicker, you know, when you got thousands and thousands or even, you know, hundreds of thousands of images, you know, which ones are the right ones that a commander, for example, needs to see at that right moment. I mean, we're talking life and death sometimes on the battlefield and how quickly that can all unfold. So yeah, really great. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tom. Go on.
That's okay. No, you're absolutely right about that. The other main investment, and this is another data set piece, and it ties into Ultra, is that how do we integrate drones, small UAS, medium-sized UAS, whatever they are, into beneficial uses inside the military GrandSky environment. And so we don't want to just worry about 1 drone, 2 drones. We want hundreds flying. That's the real force multiplier. That's how you can really change things. But know which drone is doing what. That's Dawn's drone, that's Tom's drone, and that's Chris's drone. Whose is that? We don't know what that one is. And so that's a counter UAS piece. It's traffic management. It's ACES. It's all of those things. But being able to do that over and over and over in an active-based military environment where aircraft are coming and going from the runways, and all of that particular aspect of it. That is a lot of data to harness, manage, process, and know what you're looking at real time.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, for those that have not been in the military, you may not fully appreciate that a base is a mini city. You know, that commander is like the mayor. And so everything you think about to make a city run is happening on that base, whether it's, you know, civil engineering, right? There's water. There's electricity, there's infrastructure, there's law enforcement. So in the Air Force, you have security forces, or the FBI equivalent, our Air Force Office of Special Investigations. You know, you've got accidents that happen. So you might need, you know, just traffic accident, you know, imagery from a drone as an example. I mean, the list goes on and on. Anything you think a drone can do anywhere can actually be doing that same work on a base more efficiently. And it's just, you know, Tom and Chris, it's mind-boggling to me that the military hasn't really done it yet. And I know what they've been waiting on is ACES, because they've been waiting to understand what's flying where. I remember just when recreational flyers wanted to just fly on the base, right? Because there's always a model aircraft club, at least in the Air Force, probably in the Navy too. Because big aviation community, obviously, across all the services. You want to kind of foster that next generation. And it's just like, how do we know who's doing what, who's flying? We have to be safe. So I think this is great. I think this is going to take everything to a whole new level. And it's exciting to see what you have coming up in 2025. We are getting close to the end of our time. I knew we would. This time would fly since we're talking about data-driven ops, and that's pretty much your bread and butter there at GrandSky. So why don't we go ahead, and I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to kind of close us out. Any final remarks, anything you want to say that we missed? And then, of course, please include how folks can reach you. So, Chris, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll end with Tom. So over to you first, Chris.
Yeah, no, and thanks so much again for having us today, Dawn. This is an exciting conversation, but I think at its core, Ultra and the ACES and GrandSky is trying to create ubiquitous airspace access agnostic to the user and agnostic to the methodology that's being used, which is true integration of unmanned aerial systems into our national airspace system. So I think that's critically important. And to do that, we need more partners, more sensors, and more data-driven operations, because we need to be able to provide that data as a proof point to the Federal Aviation Administration to convince them that we're going in the right direction. And I think that's what the Department of Defense has been seeking. So I think in the past we've rushed to solutions. Now we're taking a more methodical step in the right direction. And I can be reached at any time at GrandSky or through any of the media on LinkedIn.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Chris. Tom, we'll close with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on, Don, especially being able to talk about our favorite topic, GrandSky and Ultra. It's what we do every day. You can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm there. You can get me on Facebook, or also swoyert@grandskynd.com. I'm happy to do that. Email is always an easy way to reach me. We are excited about what this spring and summer holds, and you're right. I invite everyone in the audience to the UAS Summit in October. Come watch Don tape a show there, and we'll talk about all these things in the past tense. So we're excited.
Yeah, and in the middle of all that, shameless plug here, everybody, our Law Tech Connect, and by the way, Tom was on that stream yesterday when we did our Law Tech Connect premiere for panels 1 to 4, is going to occur in May at AUVSI's Exponential on Monday, May 19th. You can meet Tom in person. GrandSky is our bronze sponsor, which we greatly appreciate. And he's going to be on a panel talking about government autonomy deals. I mean, who else would be better to talk about that than Tom? So, we have, of course, other experts on that panel and many others. So please join us. Check it out. You can go on AUVSI's Exponential registration page. Under co-located events, you'll find Law Tech Connect there. And we're also having a social hour the night before, thanks to Northern Plains UAS Test Site, as well as the African Drone Forum and Energy Drone Robotic Coalition Summit. You got to sign up for that separately. All this is on my website, P3 Tech Consulting, by the way. So check that out. But that's all she wrote for today. Man, what a journey it's been. Thank you both, Chris. Thank you, Tom. What a great show. I learned so much. It's been a great update about what's been happening in Project Ultra, where you guys are headed, and this ACES that you've put together, and the call for more partners, everybody. You heard it here, so you know how to reach them now. That's all she wrote for today. Thank you so much. We are out here.